I'm going to talk about two things today. One is event creation, so setting up the slots for the some of you will call them campaigns, some of you will call them projects, jobs, whatever. Um, and of course, you can change the vocabulary on your system, but I'm going to refer to them sometimes as events, sometimes as projects. It so I hope you're okay with me doing that. Now, also, we book staff. Some people call them colleagues, some people call them staff, and we book them on shifts. Some people call them visits or reports, but I'm going to use either the word shift or session for those multiple jobs that are part of a contract that you have with a customer. We're really looking now at the kind of orangey bit here. Oh, you can't. I'm pointing on my screen. But we're looking at the orangey bit here where we select staff, we set up bookings, we create shifts and set up the actual contracts and so on. In the second part of this, and in the first part, we're looking at the blue column just down here where you've won the business and you are setting up contracts, setting up jobs, creating the first shifts, and then we're looking at mass replication later, but I might just have time to have a look at the two different types of replication you can do. One is to take a shift which is going to run for 3 weeks, for example, or 2 months, and to be able to say, now I've set that up with the right pay, let's say it's a cleaning shift and somebody turns up at 8 o'clock at night and finishes at, I don't know, 4 o'clock in the morning, and they basically do that every day, 4 days a week, and somebody else does the other 2 days. You'll want to replicate that for months and months. The other type of replication is when everything happens before a deadline, but you've basically got 60 people and they've got to go to, I don't know, 120, 150, 180 shops. So you want to have all of the locations of those shops replicated. So you create one shift and then you say, now apply that shift to all of the John Lewis's or all of the electronic stores that the customer has given us on this project plan to go and look at the point of sale on or whatever it is. And likewise, you can have one event where you just have 2 or 3 shifts, but there are 600 people, 200 on the car park and 300 in the grounds and so on. So we're going to go down the blue column in this, and we're also going to have a look at the orange column. And I'm imagining that a lot of the people who are on this will be familiar with this. So the whole idea is in the blue here, in your CRM, you've won a new customer, well done, and now you've got the difficult job of you've sold the dream, and now you've got to actually make it look like it's working with all of the operations and the hard work and the paddling under the surface that we know about. So today I'm going to be looking at setting up a contract with a customer to do some work. As I said, you use different vocabulary in all of your companies, like all of us do. And then setting up the shifts. Within the shifts, you've got roles. Now, a lot of people ask me, why are there events and shifts and roles? Well, the answer is all of the companies that you work for have quite a complex business. Otherwise, the customer would just do it. So you've got a bunch of staff in a staff bank, and you've got customers who need those staff either because of qualifications or because of absence for some other reason. On that particular day, they need you to help them out with the qualified staff they need. So you have to have a contract with that customer, which is effectively what we call the event, but you could call it the contract, campaign, project, or whatever. And you have to create shifts. So let's say you're doing 20 shops where you're doing counter cover for staff who haven't turned up. Those shifts might be from 9 o'clock in the morning till 6 o'clock at night, and they're all like that. The reason you have roles is that you might have different people. So let's say you're doing something like handing out samples in Waterloo Station, or you've got a team of people looking after a car park. They're all going to be there for the shift, which is, let's say, from 8 a.m. to midday. But in that situation, you might have one role, which is a team leader. You might have other roles, which are people who just hand out leaflets, and some people hand out the samples, and some people just concern themselves with setting the thing up in the morning. Each of those could have different start times, different finish times. And even then it's not standardized, because one of your staff could say, I can make that job, but remember, I'm working for you earlier on in the morning, so I can't start until 10. Or I have to pick the kids up, but then I'm available for you all the rest of the weekend. So those kinds of things happen. So you have to be able to change anybody's role at any time. Likewise, somebody could go off sick halfway through. Somebody could be asked to stay behind another 2 hours to put the bollards away afterwards or whatever. So it has to be very, very flexible. And as you know, with flexibility comes a certain amount of complexity. Within roles, you can put, if I could have typed that, pay rates, i.e. the amount that you pay your staff, and you can also put the client rates. So if you're paying your staff, let's say £120 for the day, or £10 an hour, or whatever it is, you can put that in there, both the day rate, fixed rate, the hourly rate, and so on. Likewise with client rates, if you're paying your staff £10 an hour, you can charge your client £200 for every member of staff that turns up as a fixed rate, or you can charge your client by the hour. And because the system knows the start time and the finish time, it can work out all the pay. So the benefits of putting the stuff in means that you can get all of the information out that will create all of your invoices and create all the payroll for the staff. And many of you will be using some of these functions and customizing them as we go. So then how do we find the staff, book them on the shifts, and do things like check in and check out? Now, a lot of this stuff is discussed. So for example, all the pay stuff is discussed in finance later on, but I just wanted to introduce it today. So first of all, let's set up an event. To set up an event, I think the best idea is to move from PowerPoint onto an actual demo. So with setting up an event, which I'm going to define as like a contract with a client with many shifts and potentially many people, we have an event creation wizard. And once we've gone through that, we will have created a model shift with all of the roles, if there are more than one role. And we'll also have added things like briefing notes, files, a picture, and so on. So let's take a look at that model. So here's my event management system, which was the screen that I meant to bring up. And as you can see, I'm logged in as an admin, so I get to be able to look at everybody's shifts if I put not set. But if I was to put admin, I only get my own. Normally the default is that you see your own shifts. If I was to take that date back to, let's say, 7 there and refresh my list, I might get other events as well. And likewise, if I was with many of you, you're booked up some months ahead. If I was to move that into the future, I just see the future shifts. So it's a good way to be able to have a look at the shifts there are about. So if I was to look at this example first and click on here, you can see that I need 164 people for this particular event. And it looks like I've got none booked, which is a good place to start. If we take another event, these shoe ones, it looks like we've got, in terms of running dates, not very many. So I'm going to use this as an example of replicating. And if we look at the blue shoes one, it looks like there's a lot of days on here and one site where people are handing out leaflets, and we just need one person to hand out leaflets on every one of those days. So if we look at how to create, there will be a button which says new event on most people's systems. And again, you can change that. So on this particular demo system, for whatever reason, we changed it to new tactical, but it could say new football match or new festival or anything, depending on what business you're in. There are then slight changes to this screen, depending on your business. If you do, for example, a lot of football matches, there'll be a client, but underneath it, it might also ask you for a venue. But the simplest one is just to say this thing has a client, and let's say the client is Crowthorne Football Club. You then have a project name, and it could be versus West Ham. And there would be a date for that. There'd be a PO probably from the company, from the customer. By the way, some people use it, some people don't. But there are ways to lock your system so that people cannot book the system until a project number has been given by finance. And we assume that in a larger company, or even quite a small company, that finance would check the creditability of the customer that was asking you to work for them, and do all sorts of other checks and make sure you've got a PO on board before they allowed it. With other places, people just get frustrated with not being able to book on. They've never had a PO in their lives. They do all the work for the customers and then somehow collect the money, and that seems to be the reality for small businesses these days. So then there would be the actual site. I don't know where that's come from, but we'll bash that in. And the idea would be that we would have, in this particular situation, I don't know where stewarding has gone, but let's go for customer services for now. You then put in a date, and I'm going to put that on Saturday, probably a bit late to book this, and you probably put in a set of times. I don't know, 9, something like that, and an event end. So in this particular event, it's the same date, but in your events, it would be, it could run over a month. So you'll want to brief your staff. So you would put a whole bunch of stuff in here, and this is like as big as you want it to be, and that shows up on their app. So you need to get the important stuff in there. Then you need to decide how many staff you want. So it could be that you want catering assistants, or what do we want? Yeah, let's say we've got some catering assistants, and let's say we need 5 of those, and you'd put in the times. Let's say you need 1 SIA security, and you need, let's have a look here, a team leader and stewards. So let's say there's 100 of those, and required staff 10, and what am I talking about? Just have 2 of those. That's looking about right. And we'll leave this 1 SIA guard in charge of the pub with a 3,000 crowd. So custom fields, you can create whichever custom fields you want, as you know. You can label them as you wish. You can fill those in there. Also, this thing is templated, so you can have some default values in here to save you time. I'm not going to fill in all this stuff, or I may as well actually, if I just Control C, Control V, Control V, Control V. I'm going to actually make that 08, 08, on the basis that team leaders turn up on time, earlier rather. Control V, and this can be, let's go 1900, so just to keep it quick. Control V, Control V, Control V, Control V. Now, you're probably familiar with a thing called role admin, which we're going to discuss in the admin section. You can put in role admin a standard price for these roles. So somewhere around here, if I just quickly bring up roles admin in drop-downs admin, we can we see role admin? There we are. In role admin, you can see the various different rates for people. So it looks like, if I look at stewards, it looks like stewards get paid £9 an hour, and we probably ought to put a client rate so I can illustrate that. So let's say the daily rate for a client, because you could have an hourly rate for staff, but a daily rate for the client. Let's put an hourly rate in, and let's say that's £19 per hour, and that it is sales. We haven't got any sales nominal codes, so I'm not going to go through sales nominal codes. We can do that in the finance thing. So I'll save that. So that means there is actually a cost and a VAT amount and so on and so forth for those. So if I go back to my event wizard now, I don't need to put any stuff in there. I've got loads more fields I can put in there for briefing, like, don't forget there's a tube strike that day, turn up on such and such a day. There will be free beer after the match for stewards, the usual kind of stuff. And then lastly, you've got the ability to add files, and you've got the ability to put in a start date and do other dates here, which I'm not going to do because we've only got 1 date. Or either that, or I'll just say it's whatever I said, 27th, 28th, or something like that. Now, in terms of files, you can attach briefing notes. If I just attach one, the only one I'm going to attach actually is like a picture. So I'm going to make it the promo image for the event, and you should have this. Some people don't put it on, but you should really put it on. This is like this shoes thing here, because this image comes up when you're looking at the events, and it also comes up on the staff portal. So I'm just going to choose a file, and with luck it'll take me to my training file, and I can have that looks like a picture of a stadium. Oh, I think that's actually Crowthorne Stadium. There we go. So now, unless I've done something, missed out something, I can hit save, and it'll go off and it'll create me another one of these babies here. When it's finished processing, I'm just going to leave that. When these windows are processing, if you've put in loads and loads of shifts, it's always a good idea to just leave it processing. So there it is. And that will now appear on staff portals. If you configured your staff portal, if you've configured your staff app, that will appear so people can apply for that as an available shift. I might just take 5 more minutes to just have a look at replication and mass change here. If I just take this event here, if I refresh this list, you can see the new Crowthorne versus West Ham thing is up there. I forgot to choose a color, but and you can see that I've got some stats on there. Now the stats will change depending on your business, and obviously there's lots of other different dashboards. Some of you will use dashboards where you click and it kind of clamshells out to show all the different shifts and people, and some of you will use other dashboards. This happens to be like a tile dashboard, but you can see on here that I've got to find 108 people, and if I go along to have a look at that shift, because I've got none booked at the moment, we're ready to have a look at the whole idea of booking one person per shift, or in this case 100 stewards, a couple of team leaders, I think I said an SIA badge holder, and a couple of other bits and pieces. So we're going to look at that in just a moment, but what I just wanted to show you is that, let's say there were 2 of these. What I can do is I can copy this shift. So I might have a contract for 4 or 5 of these with the same customer. So I could quite easily put that on as one event. And when I'm actually in the event here in the details, you'll notice that I can delete it, I can copy it, and I can do various other things. So if I was to go to let me see now, copy here, I can copy another one and make it Crowthorne versus Chelsea. So very, very easy to do, and it takes all the stuff across. Likewise, on this shift here, it could be that I need to edit that. So if I need to actually edit the shift and the number of people and check that I've got the right payroll on it and stuff, I can go to the individual shift here. And I've put a lot of roles on this shift. A lot of you will have different sessions in different places, but the principles are the same. So you've got I should probably have put the venue here so people can find it. I don't think I've added Crowthorne Station, so it might be that I don't put the venue on. But you've got the dates, the times of the shift. And I wanted to just explain, if I just nip back to PowerPoint, that when you set up a shift, you put in all of the briefing information and so on, but you also, where was I now? Yeah, I was going to talk about the clash code somewhere here. Yeah, it comes later. When you set up your shift, this is the shift, but if I look at the session staff and roles, and I look at the different roles, you'll see that presently all the roles fit to the shift. So they're all going to 10 till 9 as well. But remember, this role here is 8 till 1900. Now, presently, the clash algorithm works on the 10 till 1900, i.e. this here, the 10 till 1900. And we're just doing a piece of work at the moment so that the clash code will work with the individual. So that's coming along quite soon. So each of these roles will have a different time. Do you remember you put in the briefing notes for the event? What you can do here is you can put in the briefing notes for the specific role. So it may be that in addition to the briefing notes for the whole thing, these guys will be taking along, for example, take parking permits and staff lists. Now that's peculiar to team leaders. No other role needs that. You'll notice also here that I haven't got a staff daily rate. Let's say they get 15. and the client daily, that's not a very good daily rate, is it? Let's say they get 200 for the day. They're important people, and the client pays a daily rate of, I don't know, 300 if we're lucky. And we probably need to put the VAT in there. The reason I've had to do that is because that must have been one of the ones in drop-downs admin where we don't have a fixed cost, so there's no point in having a default. You'll notice here another few tick boxes, like whether they can manage team times and things like that. So whether they can manage team times and things like that, and whether they can, whether they are configured to fill out questionnaires. The reason you would click this is obvious. They can fill out the actual timesheets for their team. And the reason that they can click this would be if they had to fill out a questionnaire on people to say, for example, did so and so turn up on right, where are they wearing the uniform, and so on and so forth. So it could also be that they have to do a health and safety questionnaire for the whole thing. And sometimes team leaders get along and do a baseline questionnaire before the event and check that all of the contractual policies, procedures and stuff are in place. Was the hand washing stuff there for the staff? Was the check-in, check-out set out? Did the client offer special staff toilets as agreed, and so on? So that's what those tick boxes are for. When we go on to staff bookings, I will be talking about qualifications. Now, one of these roles needs an SIA badge, so you can add a qualification to a specific role, and it could be that everybody needs to have internal training. Now, when you search for staff for an event, we just move this on to the next piece, so that we've basically moved on to the kind of booking side now that we've created this event. When you search for staff for an event, there are different ways of getting to the search. If you just click on search, if you're in HR and you want to know how many people there are at the job application status started an application form, or how many people you have who like bananas, then you can just go into the search and search for those people. However, if you're looking to book people on a specific date, this search comes up with the specific date. More importantly, obviously, you can pick the correct people for that date. So in this case, we would be looking for people within, let's say, 10 miles of, and I'm just going to, mostly you can put in things like Crowthorne, or you can put in the precise postcode. Ours is RG456BX. But, and let's say we're going to look at the staff photos here. Hit return, and off it comes. Now, many of these parameters here, you know, are they a field marketing? Are they a steward? Are they customer service? Whatever. Most of those are tick boxes that you just tick for people. The difference between that and qualifications, these babies here, is if we have this list of people, we can check if they're qualified. And the difference between a qualification and these things which look like qualifications is that qualifications have a range of dates. So an SIA badge will last 3 years. So sometimes you'll look at this date and you'll say, well, Bill Bloggs is free on this date. So this lady here is definitely free on this. No, it's not a lady, it's a bloke with long hair. My mistake. So it's this person here is free on this date. It looks like her vetting status is okay. Her vetting is in progress. She's free on that date. She's got no strikes. She's full-time, blah, blah, blah. And it looks like she's traveling. She should not have been, if she is traveling, if she is on sabbatical, then that should not be tickable, and somebody should have retired her for, you know, temporarily. Let's go to this person here. So this person's experienced, he's registered, he lives nearby, he's only looks like lives around the corner, absolutely perfect person. However, I can't remember if we put a qualification on this before, but if we put a qualification on it, we would need to check that he's qualified. And I can't tell you how many times, at least 2 or 3 times a year. And once when one of our salespeople was demoing to Windsor Racecourse, and they said, oh, it's another bug in the system. I want to book Pat on this particular pub door job. And of course, Pat's SIA badge had run out and he couldn't book her on. And he said, she's not booked, she's not on holiday. Why can't I book her? It's another bug. And of course, it wasn't a bug. It was the system doing its job. So down here, we've checked the qualified. Actually, I probably need to check qualifications. No qualification selected. So there weren't any qualifications. I didn't tick any box. But if I ticked SIA badge holders and then gone and looked for SIA badge holders, then it would have put a big tick by the ones that I could book and a big cross by the ones that I couldn't book. So the next thing is we can mail these people and we can send them off. Have you ever seen the hot list button or pressed it? If you hit the hot list button, by the way, sometimes customers want to know who's going to be on their site. So once you've chosen a bunch of people, you can hit the hot list button. I don't know where mine has gone to. What's that? Oh, I hadn't selected anybody. But if I selected, let's say 3 or 4 people, I can hit the hot list button and I can say to the customer concerned, here's your lovely people, and they can see, because some customers, if it's any sort of modeling, if somebody wants some people to model bride's dresses for their shop, or if it's security, I know, for example, Oxford County Council asked one of our customers, Cellsec, recently to give them a list of all the people, their SIA badge numbers, and so on. So it sends off a mail, and you can click. The customer can click on this link, and they can see information about the people. And of course, I don't know if we've got very good stuff in here, but obviously it doesn't give them any emails or whatever, but it does say what previous things they've worked on, and you can put in here, this would be slightly sort of field marketing-y, but in the case of Oxford County Council, when they did that event, clearly they had to put in their SIA badge numbers and their BS 7858 status and so on and so forth. So that's hot lists. So let's go back to the staff search. I can also obviously book these people on the event. So I can book the staff on this session. I can also add them to the waiting list. And I'm going to explain the difference between waiting list and rejected list and stuff in just a moment. I can also add them to what's called the provisional list. Now, the reason we have a provisional list wasn't first to allow the staff on the staff portal to be able to say, oh, I'd like to do that job, and to show interest in the job. The first reason we ever created the provisional list was as a provisional list. And when we first started interviewing staff agencies and learning about their challenges 10 years ago, the sorts of thing people come back with was that they would have a clipboard full of names of people that they thought. So the customer wanted 4 people to do sampling at Waterloo Station, and they would have a clipboard full of names that they thought would be right, and they would go through them and call them. So that was what the original provisional list was. So we could add them to the provisional list, or we could say, look, we don't know who can turn up. So you can tick the lot, and you can email the selected staff, or you can text them, or you can send them a notification. And the notification uses Accelerate Chat, which is like WhatsApp. It goes to their cell phone if they're running the Accelerate app, which most people are now. And it basically does like an internal WhatsApp for you to say, hey, can you make this match on Saturday tomorrow? And at this stage, you would almost certainly text them, because text is the fastest and most furious of these communication methods in this situation. Hopefully you don't have, well, I know for a fact that all of you have at some point or another had one of these urgent requests from customers, many of it based on good service in the past, where they know that they can throw a difficult thing at you where somebody else has let them, one of your competitors has let them down perhaps. So that's one way to book people on. And what I wanted to show you was just occasionally you'll get a situation where you've got 3 or 4 positions and 3 or 4 people. And do you remember this date here? We can get situations where, I'll just bring back the main system again. Where's Chrome gone? Right, we can get situations where we want to book a certain number of staff on a certain number of roles. So let's take this one here. I'm not sure how many people are familiar with this, but there is a thing called multi-book. And the idea of multi-book is that you can, for that date, choose staff. So let's get a bunch of staff like that. Choose a bunch of staff, pick whatever, register. We almost certainly don't want applied. We just want probably just registered or something. Successful video registered. So, and you don't have to tick that, because obviously only staff will turn up. And I'm just trying to get rid of that lady who hasn't been retired, who should have been. So now we have a bunch of people, and I'm just going to take, to keep it simple, I'm just going to take a small number of people so that we can Go. So I'm just going to take a small number of people to it. So I'm going to book the selected staff on this session, and interesting. I thought I started with multi-book. So if I go from 2608 to 3108 and then refresh. If I take the New Blue Shoes campaign, good, we got a nice short amount of different sessions. And the purpose of this is when you've got multiple bookings. So get the staff photos out again, and 10 miles, probably quicker to type postcode. There we go, there's a bunch of people, and I'm just going to pick 5 or 6 of them and show you this multi-book. So now if I book the selected staff on this event, the multi-book comes up, and you can see a lot of these people are free. However, this guy here is already booked. So you can see he's booked on Crowthorne versus West Ham, so he can't turn up. However, these people can turn up for this leafleting in Liverpool. Actually, I've searched for people in Crowthorne because I don't think we've got any demo staff in Liverpool, but you get the idea. Now, if this is too big, this list here, I can easily narrow down the number of sessions. So I could say just the 27th to the 31st for now, if I wanted to, but I'm not going to. You'll notice we just want one person in this case. If it was stewards, you might have 30 or 300 or whatever. So what we do is you can also, if this is a very big list, you can narrow down by postcode. So you can get the system to suggest bookings, which is always risky. And you can also, I know a number of you will overbook for reliability. So I've got lots of customers who may have to take, I don't know, they've contracted to take 100 people to do the car park stewarding at a match, but they'll actually take 110, and they always sell them because some other supplier always lets them down. But if some other supplier doesn't let them down, some of their staff will let them down. So they always overbook, and they never overpay because the people that let them down get DNS, so they don't get paid anyway. So the extra 10 people get used up in those slots. So they're always, it's no extra cost to them unless everybody turns up, and they will have they'll have a kind of an idea of whether that's going to work. So we have these 4 people here. This person looks experienced, so I would probably give him the team leader role. So I would probably just tick the lot there. So he can do all of those except that day there. So I need a team leader for another day on there. It looks like they're all booked on the match that day. I have a problem that day. I need to go back and find some other people that are not booked on the match that day. So that guy is going to be a team leader, and I'm going to book, I may as well book this guy as well. And you can see that you can kind of do this sort of stuff. You can book that guy for that one and this guy for this one and so on. So if I was to book him for those, book them up. Oh, it looks like they're being used somewhere. Where is this guy? Alex Dacre is new. Jack Chappell. Oh, that's because I only need one person on this. How stupid of me. I do beg your pardon. So I thought for some reason I was talking about football stewarding, but this is an event where you just want one person to hand out. We certainly don't want an experienced person. We want a new person, let's say. So I'm going to book this guy here. There we go. So it may well be that, for example, on one of these days he's on holiday, in which case you'd unclick that and you'd click that guy to do that holiday day or something. But let's say we've booked that guy. I can't remember what the role is. It's something like leafleting. So we can now click here to book that guy on. So he's now booked on that event. And then if there were multiple roles, we could book him on. We could book different people on different roles if we had to. I can illustrate that by allowing overbooking, for example. If I tick the box to allow overbooking, I could have booked 2 or 3 people. So now we need to assign a role to this guy, and there's only one role on this, which is merchandiser. So I'm just going to assign to all. Click here to assign. There we go. So now he's booked on that. He's a merchandiser. He gets merchandiser pay to assign selected staff members. Fantastic. So there we go. Okay, and assign role. Come on. There we go. That's better. Click here to run it through. So that goes off and it processes. And this now, if I rerun this, just refresh this report. Which was it? The blue shoes. Yeah. So you can see now we're all sorted except for that particular time when unfortunately he's at the match on the 28th, and I can't remember what's happened on the 26th. I think I probably picked the 27th as a tour. So that's how to book people on. That's how to find the people. But remember, qualifications are very different to profile. Like, you know, have they got a driving license and all those kinds of lookups and things. Qualifications have an expiry date, and there will be lots of jobs that you do for customers where they have to have qualifications. We've done geography. The Google Maps thing clicks in and lets you know where people are. Whenever you import or change somebody's email, or whenever they apply, their Google Map lat long gets plugged in. So you don't have any costs of Google when you use the searches. The only costs are when you go to Google and say, what's the lat long of this person, when you import them or when they fill in the application form. And unfortunately, those costs are going up and up and up. And we're going to have to, like texts, we're going to have to at some point start saying to companies, look, your costs have got, there is actually one customer that we've got to have a bit of an interesting conversation with, because their costs have got to about 200 quid a month at the moment. And then we need to have a chat with people that are over 50 quid a month, because it all starts to add up hugely for us, especially if you use any sort of Google find their address and postcode type functions. Collections are a really interesting thing. Sometimes you have a collection of people who are not in the same role and couldn't be searched for in any other way. And that was invented for a company where they would have a party pack. So they were supplying talent for people's events where you had to have a band and a comedian and somebody that mucked about with, I don't know, a conjurer or something. You can imagine this kind of parties they cater for, mostly corporate type parties. So they would have to get groups of these people together in a certain geography. So they called them a collection, but it's nothing that you would find if you were doing a normal search. If you need that kind of functionality, give us a shout. So now booking. I mentioned the clash algorithm. It's just really important to know the clash is on the shift. So when you create the shift times, it doesn't matter if somebody is booked from 10 till 12. If the shift is 8 till 5, you can't book them somewhere else in the afternoon. And I'm astounded at the wonderful creativity people have used to get around this. The reason most people want to get around this is team leaders. So you might have a team leader at an exhibition and it's a 6-hour shift for everybody, but the team leader is looking at 2 hours for one client, 2 hours for another client, and 2 hours for another. So you might have promotional staff on 3 stands, and the team leader is going between each of them. So the team leader, quite rightly, higher rate, but only charging 2 hours of the 6 hours to this client, 2 hours to the other client, and 2 hours to the other client. They need to be booked on all 3 of those campaigns. So that happens quite a lot, where there's some sort of clash, but it's not a clash. So we're going to be moving that clash algorithm to work to people's actually booked times as opposed to the shift time. It's very rare that it happens, but it's rare enough. It happens often enough that we need to do something about it. I mentioned what the booking lists were. The provisional is more used nowadays as a clipboard for people to say, right, we'll shove those on the conditional list, and then we'll mail that provisional list. Sorry, we'll mail that provisional list to see if anybody can make that Saturday. Then if they can, you'd get them to confirm on their portal, and they'd book themselves, or they would get themselves on and confirm if you've booked them. So I think the definition of booking is obvious. The definitions of waiting list are quite interesting. So if you have 10 people and you've got that, you need 10 people, you've got 10 people. Sometimes more people want that job, and you know that when it comes to the Friday or the Saturday concerned, you'll have free slots. Somebody will drop out on you. So the idea of a waiting list is exactly as it sounds. The only thing is, once somebody is on a waiting list for that Saturday, it clashes with it. So they're effectively booked but not paid. So it's a very important thing to know that you can't find them. The idea of the rejected list, it was originally invented because one of our first clients had a problem that people who were booked on Ascot, where they were subcontracting to G4S, if I recall, had to get paid in order to make the thing work. Absolute minimum wage, because there was just no margin in the deal. They would then find that colleagues of theirs were working at somewhere like Newbury, where this agency had a direct relationship, and they could get £10 an hour. So they would say, I'm really sorry, I can't make Ascot. I've granddad's funeral, dog's dead, whatever. So the idea was to put them on a list so that they couldn't be booked on anything else that afternoon, because there's no point in ringing somebody up who's going to their granddad's funeral and saying, would you like to do this other event? Or would you like to do Ascot or whatever? So they had to be off the list of people that would come up in searches for that date and time, i.e. that shift. So now it's caused a problem because people just want to take people off a shift and maybe put them somewhere else. So if you take somebody off a shift, put them on the provisional list, don't put them on the rejected list. The rejected list really doesn't cut them off. It's very, very useful because if somebody says, I can't make that day, and they haven't booked it as holiday, it's just something that's come up like a funeral or something like that. It's really important to have something where you can put that on, and it's got to be unbeknownst to the staff member because you don't want them to swap. Another classic idea is there's somebody on the call here. They book people at Vienna Airport, and for somebody to work at Vienna Airport, like many airports, you have to take a bus into the centre of town, then a bus out to the airport, 40 minutes each bus, each way, each day for £10 an hour. If you see a job come up at your local supermarket for £7 an hour with the agency doing leafleting or something, you're going to say, oh, can I do the job at the supermarket? So we've got all sorts of ways in the staffing app for staff to be able to see some shifts and not other shifts and so on. So option one, we've been through. You go to the shifts with empty slots to be booked, you look for people, and you either multi-search or single search and you book the people on. Just to finish off with, I'd like to show you this fantastic option, option two. The idea here is that you have a staff member on the phone. So let's go back. Hopefully I've got a staff member somewhere around, or I can get to a staff member. So let's go to Henrik Barbosa. It will have certain available events. And it turns out he doesn't. Oh yes, he has one. He's available for, so it looks like he can be booked on this. And if we filter the events a little bit further to, let's see now, what is it today, 27th? Yeah, so it looks like of the events available, we only have one. So it's not perhaps such a good example as I was hoping. If I maybe stretch that out a little bit to the 10th, I don't know if any more will come up. Nope. So, oh yes, it does. Yeah. So here's the idea of this screen. You're on this person's screen because maybe you have them on the phone. And what you can do is you can say, can you make this Crowthorne Manchester United as a steward? It's so much per hour. And he says yes. You may not be managing that, but you've helped one of your colleagues who's managing that project get one more member of staff. Can you make the chopper chips thing? Can you make this Crowthorne versus Manchester United? He says yes to all. You basically then can add him on the waiting list or the staff list, or you can say you can pick a particular role for these things. And so that one would be probably not that one, but he could be a supervisor at both those. And what you can do is you can then basically say, let's get all the ones with supervisors. Yep, he's only interested in supervisor roles. I can now book him on both the list of people who are booked on that job and also on the role. So it's a really quick way to say, can you do now? It could be that he can also do the merchandiser job here. What a very flexible guy he is. I'm sure he could. So if we filter those events, I can say, right, you're doing the merchandiser role there, and I've booked you onto that. And sure as eggs is eggs, he's going to be up here in his payroll. Those things will appear on his payroll for the future, and they will be in his calendar. And if he logs onto his staff portal, obviously we would have been able to see the various different events that he would have. Let's just go for September as well. I think there might be one in September. Yep, so he's got some bookings in September as well. All good stuff. So this guy is now booked on, and we've had the advantage that we can talk to him over the phone and say, can you do this in August? Would you like some work in September? And you've got that member of staff all sorted, and you've got him booked on, and that's a little bit less work to do and a little bit less vacancies for this situation when you're trying to get people to turn up for stuff. Obviously, in this situation, I need to go back to this shift and I need to find somebody who is free for that date, and you'll be aware that you can just go back to the search. Now, all the way through this, there is an audit trail. So if I go to somebody's actual bookings here, there is a thing called the booking audit trail. Now I'm logged in as administrator. So you can see here who made all of these changes. Now, if you look at the audit trail on your actual system, then down here you'll see your actual staff, and you'll see who has booked who has booked whom, where, and when, and exactly what time. And you'll see the actual field staff member applying for the provisional list for this event. Then somebody else has put them on the rejected list. Somebody else has said yes, they're actually booked. Then somebody else has DNS'd them and stuff. It's very, very useful stuff for training to find out, whether staff are working efficiently, but also if there's any row, if somebody says, well, hold on, we have lots of situations where somebody says, I've got Sally booked at Kempton. I'm sure I had Sally booked at Kempton last week, and she's not. It's now Saturday. We're at Kempton. Sally's not booked, and it turns out she's booked at Epsom. And you can go through the audit trail and find how that happened. So basically the audit trail there is very, very useful. If you go to any of these shifts, there is also an audit trail. On most of these pages, there is a full audit trail of all of the bookings. So there we go. The audit trail is available in the payroll screen, and I just don't think I'm logged in as somebody with payroll admin at the moment to be able to see that, unless I just haven't sorted my pop-ups or something. But a very, very useful thing for you, the audit trail is. So just to summarize, we've looked at creating the events and shifts. Everybody on the call will have a different method of doing that, and of course we spend a lot of time with our customers making sure that the vocabulary, the methods, and so on are there. And we often change screens to be able to make it easier for you, which is why the event that I created there might be different to the events that you create, and the vocabulary will certainly be different. The next thing we did was we looked at various different ways of booking and the different lists and so on. So the next set of things on this subject, as I mentioned in the email that you got, are to do with mass change on the 29th of September. So the idea that you've created a model role, and you can then apply that to multiple shifts over a month or a year or whatever. But also you can change the timing and the pay. That situation where customers say, I did want 100 people to turn up at 9, I now want them to turn up at 8, or the pay changes with the hours or something like that, or the role name. And then in addition, we're going to be looking at how this affects the staffing app and the check-in, check-out facilities, and also how to approve payroll. And then that links into obviously the whole area of finance and payroll and invoicing customers. Now, the next sessions are QB, advanced survey reports, field marketing, and that's also related to e-learning. And to kick off the QB for next week, I sent a questionnaire out, and just to finish off this session, I was just going to see if I could dig out where I left it. Yes, here it is. So this is what the mail that you got this morning looks like in the mailing manager that Jack sent it from. So as you can see, we've got various bits of HTML, and we're going to be looking at how to do these things. This is what the mail shot that you would have looked at would have looked like. except this thing would have been replaced, I hope, with something like click here for our satisfaction survey or something. So the mail shot that you receive should look something like that. We'll show you how to create these mail shots. If I just close my preview up here, there we go. And in order to achieve this, what I did was I went for the questionnaire link there, and we're going to be looking at how to create questionnaires on Monday and then launch them in a mail shot so you can use them right away. And of course, these questionnaires are just fantastic for things like staff satisfaction. How do you like working for us? What would you improve? So and of course, many of you will be using this day in, day out, doing thousands of transactions for field marketing. But it's a great tool for all kinds of things, and we're going to be doing quite a bit on it. And I hope even if you don't use Questionnaire Builder, I think it'll spark up great ideas that you can use for your business, especially for e-learning. So thank you very much indeed for your time.